Good. Go ahead and call the meeting to order. Roll call. Cindy,
Here.
Kim is absent. Joe,
Here.
Jim,
Here.
Heather,
Here.
Marlene,
Here.
and I'm here, Jared. Approval of the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda and suggest one change. And that is that with the format that's being used, it doesn't list what our board positions are. It just says board member and chairman, which is actually not what Jared's position is. It doesn't identify vice president and secretary. And I would ask that we either add that after our names or add that in the discussion at the end of the notes, so it's a proper legal record.
Second, Pat.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of board minutes for,
Oh, I'm sorry. I got that out of order. I did minutes instead of agenda. My mistake.
but we were on the agenda, so we approved that. Approval of the board minutes for January 30th, 2025.
So I will reiterate that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Visitor comments?
Hey, Jared, this is Roy
Yes.
Roundtree. I've been coming to your board meetings, and Justin's been doing all the heavy lifting on the project, but I'd just like to say that I'm happy that project's moving forward, and I'm, as with Bettesworth North, that we're just working on the FF&E right now. And then just hanging in the wings, hoping that we can get some more fundraising to keep moving forward with the design of the new building. So anyway, thank you for having me tonight, and just wanted to reach out, say hello.
Thank you. Any other visitor comments? Board member comments? Committee reports, resource.
We looked over the hospital metrics and noted a drop in number in some of the patient days and services, but also noted that was likely due to February being a short month. And Jason shared that home health is operating under budget and revenues are up from last year. We've caught up with payment to vendors and new facility work is going well. Sarah Wright is tracking a number of grants, and Jason and Katie, our grant person, complimented Sarah for all of her hard work, as well as the entire PMC team, and I wanted to make sure that was mentioned publicly. We're still looking into clinic expenses versus Medicare reimbursements. Those can take some time to resolve. Joel is tracking investments, and despite some market ups and downs, interest is offsetting some of the dips, but overall investments are looking good. And there are other details Joel and Jason will probably cover, but we are excited to report that we are fully transitioned to doing our own billing, and that will be a significant benefit to PMC.
Any questions regarding that report? Thank you, Cindy. CAH?
The CAH committee met on March 19th at 2:20. The CEO provided an update and the January minutes were approved. We went over some items on the action item list, including the digital formulary, HIPAA security officer, and the active policy list. CEO went over the incident report. Infection control officer discussed antibiotics use on the CAH side and long-term care plumbing issues, which we'll talk about again in the long-term care committee, which is next. We had an update from physical therapy, went over the staffing schedule, and notably there, the wait list in the physical therapy department is way down. and patients in physical therapy are being seen in abundance. So that was real good here. As far as the facility, the sewer lines are a huge issue. We heard from radiology about no significant dosage issues, and the lab reported on tracking reasons for canceled tests and things like that. And yeah, that's what I have for CH committee meeting.
Questions regarding that? Thank you, Joe. LTC.
So the long-term care committee met right before the critical access hospital committee meeting at 1:30 on March 19th. CEO provided a report and talked about that the long-term care committee would meet monthly, but it will meet with like a large group one month and a smaller group the next month. The Medicaid situation was discussed and at the federal level, and that yet has an indeterminate effect on long-term care, but the situation is being monitored. February minutes were approved. We went over some items on the action item list, like restorative program implementation. There was a lot of discussion on the sewer line, coming up with a plan on what to do if the sewer line fails completely. That written plan is in progress, and the septic system is so weak that it requires mitigation from staff, and I'll leave it at that. Active policy list was also discussed, and polypharmacy reduction project is ongoing. We went over the incident reports. We talked about infection control. Again, more discussion on the plumbing issues, and we had a discussion from long-term care on some items that had been ordered. Activities reported. They're excited about the new hire there, and we talked about the boiler and bathrooms and long-term care, et cetera. That's what I got.
Questions for Joe?
If the sewer lines, if they go out and all these plumbing issues, what happens? I know that we're responsible, but what does that look like?
I mean, depends on how severe. And I think that Wolf and, Justin's here today too, because that's something that we went through with our owner's rep to evaluate and address, because there's some risk. There's a lot of risk. We talk about this quite a bit. And, if we had a catastrophic failure with any of the points, we would have to look at the cost of what we would call a non-code upgrade. And there is potentially a substantial amount of money, even if it is non-code. A code upgrade would be, exponentially more expensive, because that means you have to code up, you have to, replace the components, and then whatever space you're in, you have to meet the current standards and codes, which, we get by because of the age of the building. But as soon as you renovate that, you have to upcode. And those become, that's the exact kind of thing that we want to avoid. It's why we're, moving towards a new building. So whatever the solution, it would be, all I could say would be probably temporary, but I'd ask maybe Justin, if do you want to maybe speak to that just a little bit on, because we did talk about that a little bit, and then I know Wolf's not here today, but if you would.
Done? Yep. So yeah, I think when we walked through some of the major problems with trying to make repairs, I think a lot of it depends on where it would happen. We looked at some of the areas that were poured in concrete that were, I think it was through the corridors. Those kind of areas that, there's ways to to make those repairs with a pumping system if you don't have gravity. But what that would look like for a temporary system like that inside the facility would be, I guess, just dramatic, I guess is the only right word to say. You would need some kind of lift station, in the corridor, and it would have to go like, surface mount to the nearest exterior location to get it out and then go around and come back in to where it goes into the city sewer. So, I mean, it's hard to say exactly what it would look like, but it would be a dramatic event, basically.
Would you have to relocate the people that are in?
At least for some time, yeah, for sure, because, I mean, you'd have to open up, you'd have to open it up.
Depends on the, whatever the situation is, but, some of the plumbing is embedded in the concrete. And so that's where we would find some pretty significant challenges. So, but a lot of it is just what ifs. We just don't know. And, this is something that we've been mentioning as a board and as a hospital, that, that these catastrophic kinds of circumstances would be something we would have to go to the borough to look at and for funding to be able to, that's the whole purpose of going to the new facility and new funding is to try to avoid this kind of situation where we then have to go to the borough for. So, yeah, I mean, hopefully we can keep moving that along and working with what we have, but that runway is always getting shorter, always getting shorter.
Thanks,
Follow-up question.
sure.
If that were to come, is there a place in town to relocate, or are would the state then step in if the borough asked for a crisis?
Yeah, I mean, the worst case scenario, and I don't want to make it sound like we're in a crisis, like, I just want to make sure that, but those, we do, we would temporarily it would be like an emergency evacuation plan where we have an agreement, work with the manor, and that would be a place to temporarily. But make no mistake, we could not keep people there. We would have to find an alternative location, an alternative site, an alternative long-term care facility to place those residents appropriately. And that would, to me, in my mind, that would be catastrophic for the care of the community. And also, I just don't know if we'd be able to be viable in that kind of situation, to be honest. So, yeah.
Thank you. Moving on to infection control.
Yeah, this is Joe. The most recent infection control committee meeting would have been summarized at our last board meeting. So there wasn't one this month.
Thank you. Reports, information technology. Did anyone have any questions regarding Jill's report?
Hey, Jill. What does it look like for the infrastructure, the Wi-Fi to be like it's being redone or put back together, not really put back together, but just that infrastructure? And I was looking at the price for that, the Wi-Fi infrastructure. Oh, wait.
I think under community engagement, I had written just a paragraph. I've been working with Derek at the Manor quite a bit just to help them. They don't have local, can you hear me?
Can you get a little
okay.
closer there?
Oh,
There
you're
you
right,
go.
it's not green.
Yeah.
They don't have like a local IT person. And so we've been assisting with, other aspects of things that they might need. But one of the things was I helped them to install a payroll system that is a lot more efficient because they were using paper. And then we looked at their Wi-Fi infrastructure. And so they didn't have access points throughout the building. They just had like one local on the first floor and it didn't really reach. And so when we would try to do like telehealth or even just residents there trying to use the internet, it was, it just didn't work. And so I had kind of walked through like what we did in our long-term care and he mirrored that. Yeah, so.
Thank
yeah.
you, sorry.
Anything else? Okay.
Thank you, Jill. Materials management. Did anyone have questions regarding them? report by Melvin. I did have one question, and that's when you talk about the physical count summary, and you've got numbers over there, but what do those actually tell us in that report? I said,
Go up there.
at the end of your report, you have physical count summary, and you've got the different numbers there, but I don't know.
Okay, for the pre-perp count value, that is the count before we count the items that we have in the warehouse. And then the perpetual count, that is the value or amount that we have in the warehouse. And then the non-perp is, we don't have that because those are non-inventories. Is that good enough? Anything else?
And is that the dollar figure
Yes.
over on the other side?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
And
Were there any other questions for her regarding her report? Thank you for that report. Medical records. Any question on Kim's report? Thank you, Kim. Nursing, any questions on Jennifer's report? Thank you, Jennifer, for that report. Any questions on the activities report by Alice? None. Thank you, Alice, for that report. New facility. Okay.
Okay, so the new facilities, the work building, site work has resumed. They're bringing in the final grading material. There's going to be some landscaping going on, pouring of the concrete for the sidewalks, and then the service yard, which actually they did a pretty big pour today on that, which is really great for the weather. Perfect weather. We need 3 really good days for that. So it looks like that's going to work out well. Other exterior improvements, they poured the concrete for the light poles. And then they're doing some additional work around the entry drive into that lot. And most of that exterior work should be completed by the end of April. On the building itself, additional layers of rock wool insulation are being added to the exterior, part of the cladding buildup. There's metal siding that's still going on. That's probably about 75% complete around the entire building. On the inside, Otis has completed their elevator installation, and yesterday we did the testing with the state to get the certification for the elevator. And we also did the testing of the fire alarm with the State of Alaska Fire Marshal and got signed off and all that stuff. So everything went really well. Other items on the interior of the building are electrical trim out, mechanical trim out, comms, and carpet and flooring. The MRI addition steel structure is up, and ETS Lindgren will be working off-site to fabricate the copper shield that is the cap for the MRI that is part of that structure. And they're planning on installation for that in May. That'll also include the chiller units for it and the power conditioner that's provided from Siemens, the same company that is providing the magnet. And all of that should be showing up, the magnet and all the rest of the equipment should be showing up towards the end of June. Moving to the hospital design, no further progress on the design. We basically paused at 35% schematic designs for that, for the hospital. We did submit a permit for Phase 5 wetlands permit to the Corps, so that was basically the drive to extend into Excel. So that's underway. There should have been a public notification of that has gone out, I think it was yesterday, for that. And so we're basically making that an option to be able to do that work. It's kind of pending the permit and budget and everything else like that. And so upcoming construction activities for the month of April, exterior siding is going to continue. There's still going to be some concrete work to do, primarily on the west side of the building after they get the service yard poured. There'll be some more flooring going on. They'll be finishing the fire alarm, trim out, mechanical, electrical trim out, and framing on the MRI addition, which I think they already got that started. And in May, we're targeting a substantial completion walkthrough with the design team and the engineers on May 1st. They'll generate a punch list and walk the building and, check the building for general conformance with the construction drawings. And we'll work towards closing the building out. The MRI addition is going to be, there's going to be some lag there in completing that, but we're still targeting July 1st for substantial completion on the MRI addition. No changes in the budget, and there still has been no change orders to date. Any questions? Yeah.
Did the light over in the big conference room over the table, did that get put on the punch list?
It's going to be on the punch list,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, I think if it's a fixed table, they usually bring it down as close as they can, so it provides the most light. But in this case, if they're going to be moving, I think it's a 6'8" minimum requirement for a head clearance. Yep.
I had raised the issue a long time ago about outdoor lighting, and am hoping that when you said light poles, which I'm not a fan of, that it will not be a high-intensity lighting. There are some buildings in that area that have put in LED lights now that are ridiculously bright, and we want to be good neighbors, and we are close to a residential area, so I'm hoping that we can moderate the lighting somewhat and still keep a safe site.
Absolutely, yeah, no, that is a concern. And with these particular fixtures that we selected, they have a shroud. So it's a downcasting light. A lot of I know exactly which lights you're talking about, and they cast out kind of it's an intense LED, and it just kind of casts out. Well, these have kind of a metal shroud.
Okay.
And they're a direct, the design is to basically, it's pretty intense light, but it's a very focused light. So instead of casting out, it highlights the road and intends to give you enough light, especially in the wintertime, where you can see if there's any hazards or anything.
Okay.
Yeah. I do also believe that we, with an RFI, we shifted the lights a little bit back from the very front entry drive. And then we kind of spaced them out so that it's primarily to the southeast corner is where most of the light is going to occur.
Okay.
And any other kind of lighting that's on the exterior of the building is low intensity. We did add some lights over the signage, but they're also fairly low intensity.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for him? Thank you. Quality report. Any questions regarding the quality report? By Stephanie? Yes, Joe.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. I've been getting a lot some positive feedback on the Taiji Quan program. That's I know that's helping people with balance issues. And one thing I have heard about it is that I think recently the classes have been at 10 a.m. and that's a little hard, you know, for someone who's working to take an early lunch or something. So maybe in the future, something to think about would be maybe offering classes over the lunch hour or outside of the 9 to 5, if possible, so people who work could participate as well. So, but it's having a lot of good benefits from what I hear. So I just wanted to mention that.
Any other comments?
Only a thought on that is where we Zoom that class, I wonder if we could record it and have it, if folks wanted to attend at their own, just, you know, availability.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Stephanie, for that report. Infection prevention. Rachel, any questions regarding that report? Rachel, for that report. Executive summary.
Any questions on my report? I'll provide a high-level summary, as I usually do. First thing is, since we met last, we had a employee forum, which is basically an all-staff meeting. And we did a little differently this last time. I've been trying to get feedback from the staff and trying to get both access to when people are available. And we added an extra session this time. So we had 3 sessions on 2 different days. And so offering 3 different sessions, which seemed successful. We had 80 employees attend, which is, I think, our highest ever, which was good. Also did in a little bit more of an informal format. I try hard to provide data, and it ends up becoming a little bit of a fire hose on all the different types of information that's out there. So try to get a little more of an informal approach to that. And so it was mixed reviews on it, generally favorable, but you know, we'll see if I can blend that a little bit and then offer 2 all-staff meetings a year as opposed to just the 1. So some comments on that. We also followed up last Friday, was that Friday? That we were back in here and we met following up from our annual manager retreat that we had provided some action items. We want to get a sort of a litmus test or where we were with those action items, sort of a mid-year review on what came out of that to make sure we're making some progress on some of those things. We met in here and discussed those in a work session. And we spent a few hours here going over that, and there was some good progress. We're documenting those and making sure that we are moving some of those things forward. And there are a lot of different areas that the staff have been working really hard on, building out and making sure that we are successful on those action items. Let's see. All right, office hours this month. Trying to maintain those as well. It's becoming a little more popular, which is good. And I also have leadership there in the event that I have to step out at certain times. Let's see, I have PMC Live today, and then last time in February 27th, we had the AHA president, Jared Kosin, talking about the Medicaid cuts at that time. I think I reported out at that time, and today we had KFSK Alive again and gave an update. And we had Tracy Vincent here talking about our CNA program, which was really, really great. And also Julie Walker talked about sort of the logo refresh that we did. And I also mentioned the Bingo Size and the Tai Chi Kwan programs also with some positive feedback as well. So thank you for that. And those are a little bit of concern. Those are grant-funded programs. Those are HRSA programs that we received. Those are 4-year programs. And, you know, we don't know if those are going to be cut at some point. But the reason we're able to provide those to the community free of charge is because of those grants. And, you know, so far, we don't have any reason to believe they'll be cut. We have not provided that notice. But there's a lot of anxiety and concern about any of those grant programs that we have related to to some of the stuff that's happening at the federal level. So we're being very vigilant. There's nothing we can really do and just we have to pivot and move as things come to us. But just want you to be aware that those programs that are highly successful potentially could be at risk. Patient-centered care, our clinic access has been a priority for us, getting primary care access and specialty access. So I listed out some services we provide. One of the things that our clinic has been monitoring has been our wait time. And we have been, our med staff has been working really hard at adjusting some scheduling, and their wait time continues to go down. There are a couple of metrics that we use. Same-day appointments are just sort of like your urgent care. Those are, you walk in and those are one seen that same day, and that remains that way, and those are readily available. The next available appointment with your primary care is the next metric, and that's just like when you pick up the phone and call for an appointment, when's that next available? And that's the average is around 4 days, that's well within standards. And then the third next available appointment is kind of an average metric that you look at, a standard also in primary care of how available is your primary care provider in the long term. And that's called the third next available appointment. And that's about 8 days on average, which anything under 10 is really good. And we monitor those. They kind of ebb and flow, but we've been seeing consistently lower and lower averages, which is great, which means that patients are able to call and get in with their provider in a reasonable amount of time and certainly within guidelines. And that's really great. I also put the office hours on the Droid Jansen Clinic in my bullet as well, so you can see that. Added digital informational signage screens. There's a photo of that. I actually think that's really positive. There's a lot of flyers in your clinic room. There's a lot of information hung up, and we're trying to minimize that a little bit and make it more focused. And the screens have been popular. Good feedback from our staff and the patients as well. And that's part of our tobacco grant that we received from the state that provided some of that funding towards that. One comment on the legislative session. I did provide letters of support to SB 133. I talked about that at the KFSK today. That's basically a prior authorization bill. The Alaska Healthcare and Hospital Association has been helped write that bill and got a sponsor. I believe Senator Dunbar was the sponsor of that bill, and Jared Kosin, who also spoke that I referenced before, spoke on the Medicaid cuts. He worked with the payers in the Division of Insurance and helping getting a collaborative effort on that bill, and that I'm hoping that'll move through a legislative session. So far, it's very positive and good feedback. And basically, what it means is when you go to to get an appointment, you need prior authorization, and that's become a hurdle in a lot of ways. It's almost used as a tool for denial, and then our staff spend hours and hours on the phone working with insurance companies to try to get that authorization, and then it gets denied, and then they have to work through it, and sometimes appointments get scheduled up in Anchorage for those, and then those denials or the approvals come in through too late, and then there's a scramble. These things are just these constant day-to-day situations that our staff deal with, and having something like this bill, which provides some guidelines on how long you can provide a prior auth, and even putting some automation behind chronic care disease cases and established patients. Those are all things that are built into the bill. And then there's some accountability and also buy-in from the payers to support that. So those things seem real positive, and I feel like that's a sort of a shining light. And I did provide a letter of support for that. The other thing I commented on was SB 56. That's a little bit earlier, maybe last month, and that was to expand behavioral health operating budget. And so that's, obviously that's a no-brainer in my mind as far as providing services for behavioral health within the state. From a volume standpoint, and going back to the patient care bullet, it's been really busy up in inpatient, swing bed, acute care, long-term care, in our hospital in general. It's been extremely busy, very, not just up and down, but very sustainably busy. And it's reflective of also at the statewide report that occurred on just the availability of and access to patient beds across the state. So we're seeing that as well locally. So something to monitor. And as Justin mentioned on the new facility, it provided some good photos there. It's just really nice to be able to see some of that effort going. And again, it's worth mentioning, in rural Alaska, we were under budget and ahead of schedule. I mean, just something that I think is really worth noting. Just a great team that's able to do that and put that together, especially in this climate where it's real challenging with cost and funding. And then from a financial standpoint, Jason will go over those bullets. The biggest thing for me is and success and is the revenue cycle and bringing that in-house. And this is something that since I've been here, it's just that accounts receivable is high, goes up and down. We're working with our third-party vendor to keep the accounts receivable down, and those do good for a little while, and they bump back up, and then we move to another vendor. And I've talked about this ad nauseum for years now, and I'm just so excited that our financial team has worked on bringing that in-house, and I just want to commend everyone involved. And I asked Carrie to be here in case anyone has some questions on that. But really what it means is at the patient level, you'll be getting phone calls from local people that are working for us internally at PMC, not some outsourced vendor from some other state or some other area. And I think that that in itself is going to be a real positive. And then also being able to work the bills and the claims locally and a lot quicker, and just making sure that we also keep our efficiencies up on that accounts receivable. And that's all I have.
Marley?
I just want to comment, having recently spent time in acute care, that the staff, even though they're working so hard and such long hours, they're being patient and understanding and caring and doing everything they can to make people feel well cared for, and not just feel that way, but actually getting very high quality care delivered very well.
Thank you. I'll make sure that our staff hear that too. So it's really, thank you for that.
Any other questions for Phil?
I don't have a question. I just wanted to reiterate on the in-house billing. I think that Jason said we will be saving about $40,000 a month by doing the billing in-house, which is a significant amount of money.
Yeah, I mean, we had to invest in some staffing to get this done. And then Jason had a team helping with Carrie and our finance team getting that set up. And, when we have a vendor, a third-party vendor, a RevCycle group that does that, they take a percentage of everything collected. And that percentage is pretty significant. So then, yeah, we would not have to pay that if we have those in-house. Yep.
Any other questions? Thank you, Phil. Financials?
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Excellent, excellent. I'm having a little bit of heart palpitations here. There's no pressure on the finance team based upon what we just talked about. But we're looking forward. It'll reduce a lot of frustrations for the team as well. Just having everybody, one team under the leadership of the hospital. I think there are going to be a couple of rough spots as we go through the next 4 to 6 months and getting the accounts receivable caught up. So once again, the metric that I like to, I focus on is what we call gross days in AR. We've been bouncing around at about 85. Industry standard is to be in the low 60s. So we need to reduce it by about 20 days. I'm very confident in the team to be able to do that, work hard. But the thing that really has me nervous is what Justin had to say. He and I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago on it. I was to the understanding that the building wouldn't be done until the 1st of July and MRI in the end of July. And we have a dilemma. We didn't budget for depreciation in the new building. I can't depreciate that until July. So I don't know what we're gonna do. That's a good problem to have. I'm so grateful for the entire construction team, architect team, everybody who's been they've worked smart, they worked hard to do this, maximize all the dollars we have in the grant and be able to do it ahead of schedule. So thank you. Just looking quick at our financials. As you can see here, keep in mind February was 28 days versus July having 31. That does impact things. If you were to kind of smooth these out based upon how many days of the month, clinic visits were one of the top of the month, so 804. Radiology procedure strong, lab test as well. We're down just a little bit in rehab. May have had a person off for a little period of time. Home health visits remain strong. Emergency visits 60. Acute care days. Looks like we had one person per day in the building, and swing bed doing very strong at 78. And then resident days 384. So as you indicated and complimented everyone for their hard work, it has been busy in February. Just noting a couple of things on the financial statements. You can see the inpatient revenues higher than budget. Outpatient is a little lower than what we had budgeted, and it's actually about on schedule, just slightly above what we were year to date last year. We're at 7,166,000 last year, 7,077,000. Long-term care revenue just a little higher than budget. Clinic revenue just a tad lower, and nursing home. So gross revenues about 17, just shy of our budget. Deductions, we are calling for some additional reductions in the revenues that we anticipate receiving. We have put away a couple $100,000. We received a repayment from Medicare for the 2024 cost report, and we're tucking that away until we get to the final audit. So net patient revenues 1.7 compared to a budget of 1.8. So we're about 182 below, but that's okay. Other revenues going strong. So 340B, that pharmacy rebate program, do have confirmation here in February that AmerisourceBergen has loaded our 340B pricing, and we will be going back and reprocessing those scripts going back to the beginning of the fiscal year. So see a big change on that as we go through the end of the year. So that'll be a big pickup for us. And so one of the successes that we're claiming for the evening. Grant revenues and things look good. Other operating revenue, about 200,000 shy. As I indicated, we put some monies away. Salaries and wages, various expenses. Total expenses are about 44,000 above budget, which is okay. As indicated, our volumes are higher. Some of our revenues are higher, indicates that we have to repay Medicare. But when it's busier, we do have increased expenses, whether that's supplies or it's staffing, things of that nature. So net income, the negative 245,000. Once again, because we tucked away money for Medicare repayment potential, we'll be able to shore that up as we get close to the end of the fiscal year. And then our bottom line, after we look at our change in investment, small reduction there in our investments, just that the market turned back a little bit in February. Won't take long for it to rebound. And then $1 million and $1,029,000 in the construction grant revenues. So very strong there. Just wanted to point out to another success story. You'll see this hit the financial statements in March. We have completed the application for one of the final COVID pandemic relief fund programs. It's called the Employee Retention Tax Credit. And we worked through a consulting firm to be able to file that, who is an expert in working with hospitals to access this program. They're a tax advisory firm. And we qualify for about $3 million. That's the good news. The bad news is that it will take upwards of 2 years for the IRS to process our application. So we won't get that money right away, but it will come in eventually. They'll pay us some interest back to actually 2021 for the quarter it pertained to. But we'll share some of that with the consulting firm who assisted us in completing that application and performing the attestation that we met the criteria. So that's success number 2. Success number 3, we have completed some renegotiations with Premera Blue Cross Blue Shield. They have cashed a check that we sent to them a week or so ago, and we're excited to see that come to completion. It's been a little stressful for Phil and I when you're arguing with the big guys. Let's glance a little bit here at the balance sheet. We've got $2 million in cash. It's a little higher, as we indicated, because PERS had some issues with the software that they used to receive the funds. They did get it fixed, and we're working through here in the month of April to get those funds processed and back to them as quickly as they can receive, approve, and process those. It's a delay on their part, not a delay on our part. Investments, our short-term investments looking good. Long-term investments also looking $3.5 million. It will be nice in a couple of years. We'll receive that check from the employee retention tax credit. See that get back up to the levels that we want to see. We'll also, over the next 6 months, as we reduce our days in ER, see some additional cash come in and have that be put into our savings account. So those are the main things that I wanted to talk about. The other couple of things to make note of, volumes continue to be busy here in March, so I don't anticipate a sudden downturn. We did see that last year. Things got a little dry late winter, early spring, but not quite seeing that this year. We're working on the budget, and Joel is meeting with department managers, and so look forward to having an extended meeting and going through that with the resource committee and with the board as they so choose here in the next month or two. And just a lot of great success and very thankful for everyone. I would call out, compliments to Justin always, but I wanted to point out our purchasing department. They got to have an incredible experience here about a month or so ago. It's not every day you get to issue a purchase order for $900-something thousand to buy a new MRI. Bet that was quite the day for Malva to be able to do that. So kudos to them. They do an awesome job making sure that we have the supplies and everything that we need. You might not have been aware of this. We talked a little bit about it, but this past winter, due to the hurricanes in South Carolina, isn't that where it was? There was a nationwide shortage of IVs, but I never really heard us talk about a big impact to the facility. We had a good number in stock, and our purchasing department was very good at sourcing, and it never really caused an impact to our operations. And just need to give a shout out to our purchasing department and making sure that despite what might be going on in the world, that we're always resourced with the things that we need to provide patient care. So thanks to them. Those are the things that I wanted to report on tonight. Any questions for me?
Seeing none, thank you.
Okay.
No old business, no new business. Next meeting, April 24th. Anyone gonna miss that?
I'm out
So
of town.
last Thursday.
It must be. Do we have a motion to go into executive session to discuss legal matters?
Make a motion to-
Oh, is it-
make a motion to go into executive session for legal matters.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you, everyone.